Hunter x Hunter Chapter 402 is here. It still doesn't feel real that this is the second week in a row we've had new Hunter x Hunter, but here we are. So, spoilers beware, and let's get into it. So, the chapter begins in Third Prince Zhang Lei's room, where he is being given a status report from one of his guards named 1040. And he says, in the event that the 3rd, 5th, and 14th princes are the only ones left standing, then the 5th Prince Tubeppa and the 14th Prince Wobble will withdraw from the succession war. Zhang Lei says, well, Prince Wobble I understand, but Tubeppa, on the other hand, have any documents been drawn up as proof of this? And 1040 says yes. In addition, Prince Wobble's team has requested that Sakata and Hashito remain with them indefinitely. We then cut to 5th Prince Tubeppa's room, who is seemingly being given a status report, and she says, so on top of our peace treaty, Kurapika also accepted my partner contract, and her guard Mayor says, affirmative. His only condition is that the prince and queen be present when he comes to this room, and the 3rd prince's private guard has requested that they be present as well, to divulge information. Tubeppa says, that's actually better for us if we get to live with Prince Wobble and the queen too. We then are privy to Rihan's thoughts, who is one of Benjamin's guards that is currently stationed with 5th Prince Tubeppa, and he thinks to himself, so they're colluding with Wobble, no, with Kurapika. We then cut back to Zhang Lei, who says, here, as a token of my appreciation, take this, and he hands one of his Nen Beast's coins to 1040. He says, this is your second coin, right? The more you accumulate, the greater the reward. And 1040 says, yes, sir, it would be my honor. And Zhang Lei says, hey, by the way, if you keep that coin on you at all times, you'll be endowed with good luck. And then he thinks to himself, including a surrender clause is progress, but in this war, is surrendering even a positive thing? And what's with this coin? I assume that something would happen after the 10th day, but perhaps it won't activate while it's in my possession. We then cut back to Tubeppa's room, who is also thinking to herself. She thinks Tserriednich didn't come to the banquet, meaning an alliance with me isn't one of his priorities, and I can't waste time while Benjamin's private soldiers are targeting me. I need to redirect their attention to 3rd Prince Zhang Lei somehow. So at the next meeting, we're going to need to highlight how close the guards are to Prince Zhang Lei's side so that the 1st Prince's guard picks up on it. And right as this is happening, as Tubeppa is signing this peace treaty, her Nen Beast appears behind her, and Rihan picks up on this, again, 1st Benjamin's guard. And he says, her Nen Beast appeared right after signing the treaty. If that wasn't just a coincidence, then that could mean it's a conditional type ability. Now, just as a reminder, this is not good news for Tubeppa because Rihan is the one that killed Prince Saleh Saleh's Nen Beast. His ability is Predator, the one where the more he figures out about something, the better predator he can construct with his Nen in order to take it out. So the more and more he learns about Prince Tubeppa's Nen Beast, the sooner he's going to be able to destroy it. We then cut to Milko, who is the captain of 1st Prince Benjamin's guards, and he is messing with like a secret compartment in his shoe, and then he pulls out this like high-tech case that he enters a code into. It pops open, and there's a drug known as TSK-17 inside, and he's thinking to himself, one of our country's many mass murder tools. A flaw was discovered in it, so it never made it out of development, but if used properly, it can be the perfect silent killer. At first, the symptoms resemble gastroenteritis, and it's this misdiagnosis that will lead people to think it's infectious. If one plays it by the book and quarantines the target, you can keep the unnecessary deaths down. The viral bodies are weak and won't last 30 seconds once airborne, but should a human inhale it during that time, it'll spread throughout the body and will cause multiple organ failure within half a day. It also causes the target's body to decompose quicker, so the bacteria will help mask the cause of the death in the autopsy. And in a room with no air circulation, it has a 100% success rate at the hot spot, which is basically half a meter away from the target. The further you get away, the less chance of, it actually infecting the target become. So this drug fell out of use because the potency falls off so rapidly, but it's perfect for this task. We then see Milko do a few more things with this drug in order to prepare it, it seems, and then he says, with this, I'll erase Hulkenberg. We then cut to Prince Tserriednich's room where he is training with Salkov, and Salkov, if you recall, is one of his guards, but also a member of the Hunters Association that was kind of working with Theta. So Tserriednich is currently running on a treadmill, trying to train his Zetsu, and basically multitasking 3 different things at once here. And he asks Salkovs, how many seconds was that? Salkov says 9.67. And he goes, damn, finally beat 10 seconds, huh? But still a long way to go. Let's try again in another 10 seconds. And Salkov thinks to himself, finally, I had mastered Zetsu from birth, and it still took me an entire year of training to reach this level. They even call it a second wall, and yet half a year for me is a day for this guy. What a monster. Theta was right. Judging from his personality, this guy will just use politics or Nen to satisfy his own desires. I've got to do something. He then out loud says, no, sir, that is excellent progress. This growth is unprecedented. Now, just as a reminder, this is Salkov and that is Theta. Theta, of course, being the one who was previously training Tserriednich and Nen, but is currently recovering after she tried to assassinate him and then, got afflicted by his Nen Beast for lying to him. So Salkov is currently overseeing the training. And what's interesting here in this scene is he says he mastered Zetsu from birth. So I'm wondering if this is a reveal that he is also one of Beyond's children, because we know that they were kind of force activated from birth and as an just survival mechanic are forced to learn Zetsu as babies. So it isn't explicitly said, but that's interesting. Anyways, let's continue. So Salkov thinks to himself, according to Theta, an ability activates when the prince enters Zetsu, which is incredibly rare even amongst specialists. So my only theory is that when a Nen Beast is constantly blessed with such a raw amount of aura and then has that cut off all of the sudden by Zetsu, that's what triggers its ability. However, it is possible that Theta was just being manipulated by the attack she suffered, so I have to keep that in mind as well. In any case, though, I still haven't even seen this thing in reference to the prince's Nen Beast. Not his guardian Nen Beast, but his actual ability Nen Beast. Salkov has not seen this yet. Meanwhile, another one of Prince Tserriednich's guards walks up to him, Vantine, and says, Prince, I have some information about the hunter named Senritsu. And Tserriednich says, yes. And he goes, it seems the Justice Bureau also doubts her alibi and has decided to prolong her custody. Prince Benjamin appears to be of the same opinion. He's posted his own soldiers to keep lookout. Tserriednich says, well, don't get outmaneuvered by that oaf. Keep meeting with her. Get her on our side and find out what she's thinking. Meanwhile, Salkov is still thinking to himself, it'd be stupid to make a move right now until I get more information. He's maintaining Zetsu while running, playing a game, and talking. Only those who have trained for decades should be able to do that. I can't even do that. This sucks. I feel insecure just watching him. Theta, you're amazing. We then cut to a scene of Kacho and Melody, and you got to remember that this is not the real Prince Kacho because she passed away. This is her guardian Nen Beast, which took on her form after her death in order to protect her twin sister Fugetsu. That was her ability. So the two of them are conversing, and Kacho shows Melody a picture of Fugetsu's back, where we can see this mark on her back that looks like a wound. And Kacho says, I saw it when she was getting changed. It looks like a bug bite, but it definitely wasn't there when we tried to escape the other day. And Melody says, this looks like an injection mark. And Kacho says, that's not possible. After we tried to escape, she returned to her room and then got brought straight here, so that there was no time for that to have happened. And Melody says, I know that, but it's likely a Nen mark. Kacho says, what's that? And Melody says, some Nen users have several conditions in order to use their abilities. She likely stepped on a trap and then accidentally cleared one of the conditions. Remember how strange she was acting yesterday? And Kacho thinks about how Fugetsu has been acting strangely and how she's admitted that she can now use her Nen ability all the time when previously she thought she could only use it once a day. And Kacho says, wait, so a Nen user has tricked her into thinking she can use her ability as many times as she likes? Melody says, we have to test her immediately. I'm sure that 2 doors will appear when she tries to use her ability. One of them will be the enemy's trap. We have to show her and convince her. Kacho says, convince her? She'll quit the second she realizes it's an attack. And Melody says, well, yeah, that'd be nice, but judging by her actions, she may be addicted. Kacho says, so you're telling me it's like a drug? And Melody says, it's all I can think of that would explain such a sudden change. Melody then continues and says, "At first, I thought one of the princes who requested a visit with me just wanted to negotiate, but I was mistaken. And at this rate, Fugetsu's body and soul won't last more than a few days. It must have been a non discriminatory type of attack that would affect anybody who gets caught in the trap." And Kacho says, "So what can we do?" And Melody says, "Well, we have to stop the Nin user, but finding them without any leads as to who it is basically going to be impossible." And Kacho says, "Well, wait, I have an idea. The seventh prince, Loserus. He's got to be using the mafia to flip drugs." And Kaiser, who works for the Bureau of Investigation, who is also there, says, "Yeah, that would make a lot of sense." And Kacho then says, "So it wouldn't be strange if that was his Nen Beast, something that was, affiliated with drugs in that way." But Melody says, "Yeah, but the prince himself might be unaware of the fact that that's what his Nen Beast does. So even if you're right, getting him to stop will be almost impossible." And Kacho says, "Well, in that case, then we've got to just beat him or his Nen Beast. There's no time to waste." And Melody says, "Yeah, I understand how you feel, but we need a plan." And she says, "Don't worry, I've got one. Back before I passed away, we were testing Fugetsu's ability to see how far she can go with her power. I don't know if there's some kind of barrier sealing the ship or not, but for whatever reason, she couldn't open up a door outside the ship. That being said, though, she did manage to connect to a room that had a lifeboat, so we can go there whenever she likes. But there's still one thing we've never been able to test." And Melody says, "And that's whether or not somebody else can enter the tunnel besides you two." And she says, "Exactly, but I think it should be okay, because the condition is the outgoing door shuts if Fugetsu enters it, and the return door shuts if I enter it. Meaning that until we enter, anyone else should be free to use the doors. So, Melody, I'd like you to test it." All right, so quick aside here because this is a lot of dialogue and there's a lot more coming, but essentially the plan is to use Fugetsu's ability with the doors to get Prince Loserus on the lifeboat and then force him off of the ship, which will kill him, the same thing that killed Kacho. So, Melody thinks about this for a second and then says, "Well, we're going to need even more people to help us with this because we'll at least need somebody to carry Prince Loserus to the lifeboat while I keep him unconscious with my flute." And Kacho says, "Well, yeah, ideally he would just agree to the escape plan and come on his own accord, but I doubt he's that stupid, so we probably will need your ability, Melody. So next up is someone to poison or restrain him right there and then." And Kaiser says, "No, it's best if the cause of death is ambiguous, so I'll carry him and we can do it during our intel gathering for the Bureau, which will make for the perfect alibi. Because his private guard will probably claim that they were hypnotized by your music, Melody, but that won't be a problem because I'm sure they'll test positive for drugs, so we could just chalk it up to a hallucination. So the story will be, suffering from an overdose, the prince made plans to flee the ship and passed away from a sudden heart attack." Kacho then looks to Melody and asks, "What are your thoughts on this?" And Melody says, "It's a good plan, but I just see one issue with it. Where are we going to link the door to?" And Kacho says, "Well, what do you mean? We'll link it to Prince Loserus's room, right?" And Melody says, "Well, yeah, but that means Fugetsu needs to have actually been there, right?" And she goes, "Oh, yeah." And Kaiser says, "Wait, I don't follow. What are y'all talking about?" And Melody says, "Well, in order for Fugetsu to use her doorway, she needs to have been to that place before." And Kacho says, "Yeah, so she'll need to have been to Prince Loserus's private quarters." And Kaiser says, "Leave that to me. We can handle that. I just need you to think of a reason that Prince Fugetsu would need to meet with all the other princes. And since the Justice Bureau is overseeing her right now, we will accompany her to this meeting, which should prevent assassination attempts." And Kacho says, "Wait, all the other princes, not just Prince Loserus?" And Kaiser says, "Yeah, it's a good opportunity to increase the amount of locations that she'll be able to use, as well as hiding our true objective." And Kacho says, "You're right, it's much cleaner that way. So how about this?" And then Kacho presumably launches into a plan, but we don't get to actually hear this plan. We just immediately cut to Kaiser reacting to the plan. And he says, "That's not bad. Claiming the letter is your dying message will intrigue the princes, and they'll likely accept if the Bureau vouches that it's safe. And as a precaution, it'll allow us direct access without informing them about the true nature of our visit." And Kacho says, "Yeah, but I'm not sure they'll let a younger prince hand it to them directly, especially Loserus. I'm sure he has a ton of things in his room he doesn't want the Bureau seeing." And Kaiser says, "Well, that just depends on my negotiation skills. Worst case scenario, I'll file for a warrant and enter by force. Inform Prince Fugetsu." There's then this kind of awkward moment of silence where they're all looking at each other, and Kaiser is like, I thought I already made my feelings clear, but. And Melody goes, No, no, it's fine. I get it. But there's just something I want to confirm because if you assist us any further, that's like the point of no return. Are you really okay betting everything on us? And Kaiser says, Of course, but it's not just out of my feelings for you, which, if you recall, this guy has a crush on Melody. But he goes, I support Fugetsu's claim because I believe it'll lead to the radical change that this system needs, especially with Kacho by her side, which will appease her mother as well. And Melody thinks to herself, I can't hear the faintest change to his heartbeat. So as long as I can't determine if he's lying, I have to be prudent and just assume him an enemy. So for now, we'll have to just remember that he could be being manipulated or lying to us. And Kaiser continues, I didn't join the Justice Bureau to blindly uphold old laws. It was to make this world a better, kinder place. And if that means dirtying my hands, I'll gladly shoulder that burden, even if the new world rejects me in the end. And Melody continues to think to herself, I must maintain this relationship for Prince Fugetsu's sake. We then cut to Kaiser walking along with Prince Fugetsu and a bunch of escorts up to First Prince Benjamin's residence. And he says, I request a meeting with the First Prince. And they say, state your business. And he goes, we would like to deliver a letter penned by the 10th Prince Kacho for the First Prince. Before Kacho passed away, she penned letters addressed to each prince. She wished for each of them to be handed directly to the princes upon her death. The Justice Bureau will stand responsible for any potential hazardous materials, such as gunpowder or drugs, should they be found within the letters. To prevent any tampering, we ask that Prince Fugetsu be permitted to deliver the letter herself. The guard just ignores this and says, give me the letter, I'll hand it to the prince. And Kaiser is like, this letter likely contains important information about the succession war. If we go against the departed prince's wish, then the credibility of this document may be put into question. So please just ask the prince yourself. And so the guard does that, and Prince Benjamin says, yeah, let him in. So they're allowed to enter the room, and you gotta remember that Prince Fugetsu looks like this right now. Because of the ability or curse afflicting her right now, she's got all these little like Nen spirit beasts things surrounding her. So Prince Benjamin, as a Nen user, can see this. And so he immediately thinks to himself, this is very bad, and it's only the preliminary symptoms. But Fugetsu says, thank you for granting me permission to visit you, big brother. Do I have permission to cross the room toward you and hand you this letter? And he says, of course. As Fugetsu approaches Benjamin's guardian Nen Beast, this thing starts like chirping some sort of chant, and the little ghosts and ghouls surrounding Fugetsu get like evaporated. And Benjamin thinks to himself, they were just exorcised. Just as I thought, they're low-ranking curses that possess those that have weak hearts and frail bodies. It doesn't appear to be Fugetsu's own guardian Nen Beast, nor part of a plan. Did they latch onto her due to her despair at losing our sister? She won't last another 10 days like this. Benjamin then takes the letter and says, you want me to read this while you're here? And Kaiser says, if that's okay with you, because in case there's information related to the succession war, I can serve as the Justice Bureau's witness. So Benjamin then reads the letter and says, there's nothing political in here. It's just a standard letter from my sister. I see no reason to show it to you. But aside from all of this business, have you guys found anything out about Muse yet? And just as a reminder, Muse was the guard, one of First Prince Benjamin's guards, that was killed by Second Prince Camilla. Muse shot Camilla, killed her, and then her ability activated where her cat stole his life and gave it to her, resurrecting her. So he hasn't been able to figure out what happened to Muse ever since that happened. And Kaiser says, well, judging by the time you told us that you froze communications, we have searched the most critical locations but haven't found anything yet. We can still search all of the prince's bases by force if you'd like, though. And Benjamin says, no, there's no point. We both know the debate on who actually wields power in the Kakin always ends up in a stalemate. Regardless, it's not urgent enough to warrant imposing martial law. And Kaiser says, you're right, but he starts thinking to himself, whoa, I can't believe he's revealing so much to me. There are different levels of law enforcement. This case would only be a military-level crisis, but he jumped straight to considering martial law, which only concerns national-level threats. This confirms that Prince Benjamin plans to abuse his powers. He was so focused on the letter that he let his true thoughts slip. Looks like we were wise to come when Captain Balsamico wasn't here. We were able to catch Benjamin off guard. We then get a quick montage of Kaiser and Fugetsu and their escorts heading to a few other princes' residences in order to hand them the letter. The ones we see specifically are Fugetsu hand it to 5th Prince Tubeba and also 6th Prince Tyson. We then immediately cut to them approaching 7th Prince Loserus's room. Loserus says, I'm actually thankful. Meeting face to face is a small price to pay if it keeps the Justice Bureau off my back. And Kaiser says, we're the ones who are grateful for your cooperation. Facilitating communication between princes is one of our top priorities. Loserus then looks to Fugetsu and says, really sucks about your twin sister, huh? And Fugetsu says, yeah, thank you for your condolences. He then takes the letter from her, reads it, and says, well, I'll be damned. She really went out with a bang. He then looks back to Fugetsu and says, did she mention anything about these letters to you? Like, did you also receive a letter? And Fugetsu says, no, she didn't say anything to me. And Loserus says, well, yeah, I guess she wouldn't want her little twin sister to get caught up in all of this. He then hands the letter to Kaiser and says, it doesn't relate directly to the war, but you better have one of the Bureau bigwigs read this. And Kaiser says, yep, I will do that. And he thinks to himself, even though I'm the one who leaked it and had Kaicho write the letter, he's just keeping up appearances. We then flash back to when Kaiser, Melody, and Kacho were planning all of this, and Kaiser says this will be a great opportunity to shake up the dynamics between the other princes as well. And Melody says, wait, what do you mean? How would we do that? And Kaiser says, well, the Bureau has gathered confidential information on all of the other princes. They're like little bombs we keep close to the chest in order to maintain peace and balance. And I assure you that they will shake things up. So essentially what he's saying is he can use his inside information to help Kacho write these letters to help disturb all of the relationships between the other princes. And Melody says, well, wait, does it make sense for Kacho to even know that kind of information? And Kaiser says, well, if the princes sniff out the source of the leak, they'll definitely get frantic. But if people start looking into Fugetsu, I'll protect her. I'll ensure she's not sent back to those dormitories, at least not until the war is over. We then cut back to the present where Kaiser is now reading the letter that Loserus just handed him, and he thinks to himself, I did not expect Loserus to let me read this. He's more scrupulous than anticipated. Then out loud he says, this letter contains information about 4th Prince Tserriednich, but if it's only this letter, then it amounts to nothing more than a rumor. Loserus then says, yeah, she basically just said she doesn't care who wins the succession war as long as it's not Tserriednich. So it could just be meant to stir the pot, but if you look hard enough, you might find some dirt there. Not that I should be talking. Then we hear Loserus's internal thoughts, and he's thinking, something's not sitting right about this. Why would she be using her dying message to drop bombs about the other princes rather than just protecting her twin sister? Did she lose the plot? The contents of each of these letters must be different for each prince. She wants to let the snakes eat each other. While I eat 4, she could then ask big brother Benjamin to protect little sister. This is a very tricky situation. I'm going to need to keep an eye out. He then says out loud again that what's right and wrong isn't for me to decide. You just hold on to that letter. We then cut to Kaiser and Fugetsu and the escorts walking down the hallway again, presumably leaving Loserus's room, where Kaiser says, if you're feeling tired, we can claim you're unwell and just pass on the other princes. And Fugetsu says, no, I'm fine. I want to help in any way I can. But we're starting to see that the little nin curses that have been following her start to reappear after they had been exorcised by Benjamin's Nen Beast earlier. However, as they're leaving, they're approached by Basho, who I'm sure you'll recall is one of Kurapika's friends, and he is currently stationed as one of Prince Loserus's bodyguards. So he walks up and says, do you have a minute? My name is Basho, and I am a friend of Melody's. So Fugetsu says, oh, yeah, nice to meet you. What can I do for you? And he says, well, if it's true you're feeling under the weather, I may be able to help. He then hands her a little piece of paper with one of his haikus written on it, which, if you recall, that's his nin ability. He is able to manifest things in certain effects via his haikus. And it's basically a really nice uplifting haiku. And he says, it's a good luck charm. Hang on to it. And she says, thank you. I'm grateful for your kindness. And then Basho thinks to himself, that should keep those lowest ranking curses at bay. But nothing's going to change if she doesn't deal with the source of whatever's eating away at her. The rest is up to you, Melody. We then cut to the next morning. So it is now the 11th day of this succession war and this expedition to the Dark Continent. And once again, we are privy to a conversation between these three discussing their plans. Cacho starts by saying, we need to think of some alternative plans just in case it isn't Loserus that did this to Fugetsu. And in the meantime, we can put her up in the doctor's office so she can get better and post guards and bureau members outside to keep watch. It's the perfect alibi. Melody says, yeah, that's a good plan. Basho has bought us some more time, but we still haven't determined who did this with 100% certainty. We then cut to them talking about this plan in general to move him off the boat with the secret doors. And Melody says, thinking about practicality, I can use my ocarina, but that won't change the fact that I can't do anything else while using my ability. And Kaiser says, don't worry about that. If the tunnel's only 10 meters long, I can carry Prince Loserus by myself. And Melody says, okay, well, other than those two, the only other prince on tier 2 is Hulkenberg. And the rumbling earlier occurred directly above us. So either it was his ability or his guardian Nen Beast's ability must have been the cause of that. So we need to figure out whether him collapsing was intended or just a side effect. I want as much information as possible and hand him that letter immediately once he awakens. And Kaiser says, no problem. I've put somebody very close to me on the job. We then see Melody's internal thoughts, where she says, we've given the Ninth Prince all of the information, Benjamin's secrets, Tserriednich's evil doings, and even the truth about Hulkenberg's own birth. It's enough to flip this war on its head. Let's hope Hulkenberg can put this intel to use. Plus, one last letter to Kurapika. Okay, quick aside here, I don't want to miss the plot, but she says the truth about Hulkenberg's own birth, but there is no other context given. So could Hulkenberg be beyond Sun, and Melody or Kaiser through the Bureau were able to find that out? That is super interesting. I don't even know what else that could mean about the truth of his birth. And then the final page of this chapter is this right here, Kurapika reading Melody's letter. It says, the princes can't leave the boat as long as this damn war is still ongoing, but I'm sure you can come up with a plan that won't spill any more blood. And the editor's note at the end of this chapter says, find the hidden path out of this war. Good Lord, this was a dense chapter, even by hunter standards. And don't get me wrong, I'm 100% here for it, but that was a lot. This video is going to be damn near 30 minutes long, and I haven't seen this officially confirmed, but I've seen more than a few people say that this is the most dialogue that has ever been in a Hunter chapter, like in terms of word count. So that's just crazy. And on that note, let me know in the comments down below if you guys prefer this type of video where like I go over everything and obviously it is going to be a longer video, or if you'd prefer a shorter, more summarized version, maybe like 2 to 5 minutes instead of 20 to 30. I enjoy doing it this way, but I know people's attention spans aren't the best these days. So y'all let me know which version you'd prefer, and you know, maybe I could even do both, but definitely let me know your thoughts. But just what a chapter. So much in this, right? We found out that Salkov was presumably one of Beyond's children, one of the ones that's out there to curse people. Hulkenberg may be his prince child. I don't know what else to make of that line of dialogue, if not. We know that one of First Prince Benjamin's guards, Balsamico, is planning on poisoning somebody. We don't know who that is yet. Just so much revealed, so much to unpack. I'm going to be thinking about it. We'll probably be putting out other videos this week on this chapter. But for now, I'm just going to process. Y'all let me know your thoughts. And yeah, we'll be talking soon. Thank you so much for watching.